Hello, I am Wallas, a toy collector from Poland. In today's toy review, I want to dive into the world of anime, or, to be more specific, into the world of one of my favorite pieces of Japanese animation till this date, Macross Plus. We do this by reviewing a toy from Yamato's GNU doll line, the YF-19. Seeing that this is the first review from this toy line dropping by my channel, allow me to explain what exactly is GNU Do. In few words, it's a toy line depicting robots from various eras of Japanese animation. Its lineup includes mechas from series such as Macross, Dankuga, Machine Robo, and few others with whose bootlegs you might have played during your childhood. I know I did. Unfortunately, GNU Do did not hold its ground against immense competition that was Bandai's Robot Spirits and Kyoto's Revoltic lines, resulting in its discontinuation after less than 20 regular releases. Was the case of badly chosen characters? Or perhaps something else? I think we should have a better understanding of this matter in a couple of minutes. With that said, time for another inquiry for those of you who don't know what Macross Plus is. It is the first canonical sequel to Super Dimension Fortress Macross, one of my favorite animes from the 80s. And as with all titles tied to this franchise, it is easily recognizable by its tough romance, transforming space fighter jets, and grand battles where the hero's voice is the key to victory. The YF-19 itself is one of the two main variable fighters for the cycle, and I can assure you, it is equally important to the plot as its daredevil pilot is. And before you ask, no, this toy does not transform and is locked in its robot form. If you want to have a version that transforms between all three original forms of this unit, you might want to pick up the beautiful but very expensive 1/60th scale version. Now we can have a proper look at the very toy, and I must say this is a wonderful piece of plastic. It literally looks like someone took scissors and animation cell from Macross Plus, cut out the robot and made it 3D. This is by far one of the most accurate representations of the Batroid mode of YF-19 I have ever seen, and by far more accurate than the transforming 1/60th version. Everything that you'd expect from the animation model of YF-19 is present, and it's wonderful. Let's take a closer look, starting with the somewhat iconic head, its green visor, red arrows, and the anti-craft laser on the back of the head. Everything is here. What I did not expect or even know about are the wonderful details that you can see once you put it into such an angle. It's wonderful in the mechanics. The arms are also really well recreated. Great mechanical fists. All the small details and characteristic black lining all over the figure. We have the arm covers, we have the vernier thrusters, fake fastpack attachments that are actually working with the more expensive and more exclusive version of this toy. We have the sensors, we have the small guns in the chest. All these tiny little details, it's fantastic. Also we have the shield, which surprisingly in a positive way is painted not only on this side but also inside. Great. We have details of the main engine for the robot, also parts of the jet that form legs, including the air vents, openings for the lasers built into the wings. And speaking of that, yes, they molded the details for that as well, and they painted it so it's visible, slightly but visible. Also, while we are speaking about the wings, a nice little detail is that while they could simply cut the UN Spacey logo in half and put one half on the wing, they actually bothered to make this accurate, and this is hidden at an angle that it would be in the animation. you can see the very fine line that splits the UN Speaks logo in half, and only part of it's covered. And yes, I know this is a small detail, but I like attention to details a lot. Also, we have the legs with the engine covers active, more black lining, control surfaces from the jet, here and here, more fake fastpack attachment points, nice feet with lovely details on the soles, really fantastic. So yes, on the visual end of things, this toy is gorgeous. One interesting thing about this toy that your naked eye can't take in is the surprisingly small weight of this toy. In metric terms, YF-19 weighs only 60 grams, while my randomly picked Revoltech Giant Robo weighs 130. And the reason for this difference is that YF-19 is a very hollow toy. You see, the way this thing is built, we have the joints for moving, then we have empty space, then another joint, and in those empty spaces they put the main pieces of the toy, which themselves are also hollow, which makes this, well, surprisingly light for a toy of this size. And for some of people this will be a good thing, because this means handling it will not be very hard. You won't be afraid to pick it up from your toy shelf. On the other hand, someone might think that having so little mass, this will be very easy to topple over, and yes, I admit, it's not going to fall when you blow wind on it. However, if you try to poke it on a slightly angled surface, you might want to be careful. It's not like it's going to fall horribly, especially if you have a toy shelf behind, but still, since this is a collector's item, you might want to pay more attention when you handle it. Well, since we brought up the topic of the so-called joints, let's continue and move on to the so-called posability. Please bear in mind though, this is not a Revoltech. Do not expect miracles. Or much. You'll see what I mean in a moment. Let's do it the old-fashioned way, starting with the head, which, as you can probably tell by now, is on a single ball joint, and a very nice one at that. It allows quite nice range of motion, tilt to the sides, looking up and down, spinning around. This is all possible, and also the laser moves, if you really need to pose like that. Then we have the arms, which move on a double ball joint, and this allows you to do something like this, and then adding the arms you can move this, and as you can see, this armor piece does move. And we of course have swivel above the elbow, though I do not recommend using it because there is this protrusion that when you swivel it goes beyond what limits offers this piece. So yes, you can do it, I've seen pictures, but then this starts to stress out slightly and small chunks of beige plastic stay on this piece, so I don't recommend this. Then we have the double hinged elbow, which allows you to go over 90 degrees. And then we have a ball joint mounted fist, which allows also a nice range of movements, but is designed more to make it easy to swap out hands. Then we have something that was supposed to be a good idea to add more dynamic to this toy, but which did not work out. You see, we have a chest joint, which is in a ball joint, which technically is supposed to add some movement. However, the design itself has few traps, like this huge panel that makes it almost impossible to effectively use this joint. Now, the second version with the fast packs, or should I say, the fast packs include a second piece that you can swap out to slightly improve the mobility, but not enough to actually warrant buying the fast packs if this version is enough for you. Then we have the legs, which with no kibble in the front and back can do this and also this. delightful. However, what the toy can't do is a full split. All it can do is this. Now this is a pain of almost all variable fighter designs. With these tops of the engines, you just can't move it further out without some intricate joint system inside the leg, which for a toy of this size and probably this budget is a no-go. Unfortunately, I was expecting to have a side swivel over here, but I did not get it, which means that this is all the side movement you can get from the entire leg, which is sad. Then we have a knee, which is supposedly double jointed but actually does not give you more than 90 degrees of movement. What it gives you is a Gundam-like effect of knee armor moving. However, this does not compensate for this. And also, if you want to revert it back to straight position, you are advised to first move this bit and only then straighten out the rest. Otherwise, you may damage the toy. And on the end, we have the legs, which are also mounted, feet mounted on a double ball joint. And this allows them to go like this, to the sides, up and down. This is one of my more preferred joints on this toy. And then we have ornaments and extras. So we have the shield, which is on a ball joint. And also you can detach it if you really want to, but I don't really see a point. You can't store it anywhere else on the toy anyway. And then we have the wings and lasers, which are connected to a ball joint and a simple peg. And I admit I like this a lot because this gives a lot more movement than you think, and actually this changes the wings from being kibble from the vehicle mode into something that can actually make the pose much more interesting. Still, this is not as dynamic or poseable as you would think looking at the sheer amount of the joints. Now it's time to look at the accessories. All four of them. We have one extra pair of open hands, which I find handy only on very rare occasions. We have the hand designed to hold the gun and then the gun itself. Or should I say, as a Macross fan, the gun port. And I admit, out of these pieces, this is the most interesting one. It looks really nice. It has all the details that make me want to think, yes, this is a proper gun port for YF-19. It even has some paint apps on the front to make the barrel stand out slightly more. But then again, this is just two pieces of plastic stuck together with glue, and lack of removable ammo clip makes me want to say this is nothing to shout the culture about. I will admit though, the gun holding hand is probably one of the best of its kind I have seen. It meshes with the gun port so well, you'd think these were never separate pieces. And this is something I can really appreciate, especially after my experience with 1/60th scale new YF-1S, which transforming hand is just awful, and when you try to stick a gun into it, it just looks even worse. So this little treat to my eyes is much appreciated. When I said the posability is problematic, I really meant it. And this should prove the point, because this is not a pose I came up with on my own. This is a pose you can find on the back of the original box. And that tells you we have a problem, because usually producers use pictures with dynamic eye-catching poses that make you want to snatch the toy from the toy shelf at this very moment. And when that's the best thing that Yamato can come up with to attract our attention, you know that's not a good sign. Okay, technically you can somehow fix this problem if you pose YF-19 the right way and use a frame that excludes the lower half of the toy, but then again, how many of us will ignore the lower half of the toy when looking at it on the toy shelf? And now it's comparison time. First with two of my Revoltecs. Giant Robo and Tetsujin 28 Go. Then we have Transformers Universe 2.0 Deluxe Prowl and Transformers Generations Fall of Cybertron Shockwave. Then we have Super Robot Chigokum Choryujin. And finally we have the main pain in the thrusters of YF-19, the GNU-Do version of YF-21. In the end, this is not a toy for everyone. If you expect your toy to be hyper-posable and ready to jump into super dynamic poses, you might want to turn to the Revoltic version of this unit. The GNU-Do is quite lacking in this field, which makes this toy a fine selection mostly for those of you who are willing to sacrifice the playability of your toy in return for an appearance that is almost flawlessly accurate to the on-screen design of YF-19. As for me, I just wanted to have a toy of this unit on my shelf, and seeing it will spend most of its life there, I'm more than pleased with my purchase. This is all for today. I'll be back with new content soon, and until then, you stay well.